All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's Michael DeVille coming to you from beautiful Phoenix, Arizona. Heather and I are doing this remote today because, if you can believe it, we're actually upgrading the studios at West USA, and we're going to have even better technology. Now, today we're going to be talking about property managers. Last week, of course, we talked about managing yourself. We talked about you certainly can do that. We talked about some of the things that you certainly want to do, managing yourself. And this week we're going to talk about what you should look for in a property manager. Now, you know I'm a great proponent of property managers. All of my properties have been under management for 30 years, and it just gives you freedom. But I understand where you'd want to have some of your properties do it yourself. You can certainly save that expense, but it is a deduction for yourself. Now, this is a give back from me to you for you to become financially free. Now, I'm going to tell you, each week I get success stories, and this just drives my train. I mean, this is really so wonderful for me. This is why I do this. And today I want to congratulate Mr. J, who is retiring before quote unquote retirement age, because his investments pay all his bills, pay all his expenses, give him money to play, and his life is now his own. And for the rest of his life, he can do whatever he wants to do because he has enough. Now, Mr. J's been on our program for about 6.5 years. Now, in 2019, we did a 1031 exchange out of Tucson. Now, Tucson is a very viable marketplace. This is certainly somewhere you could consider investing your investment dollars. However, we thought we could do better in Maricopa County. And we sold a single property in the low 200s in Tucson. We did a 1031 exchange and bought 2 properties here in Maricopa County in the very, very early 2020. So he's owned these properties just a little over a year. Now, Tucson, of course, has appreciated. That property would have made about $25,000 in capital gains in the 2020. But by moving that property here to Maricopa County, we were able to buy 2 properties, and those properties, and you all know what has happened here in Maricopa County in 2020. Those 2 properties exploded, and instead of making about $25,000 like he would have done in Tucson, and of course, who doesn't want to make $25,000 in a year? He made over $112,000 on those 2 properties because, of course, we bought them pretty well. Bought them in growth markets. We brought them right in the path of growth, and he made well over $112,000 just by getting his investment dollars invested properly. And this just propelled him to be able to go ahead and retire because he's reached enough. So my congratulations to him. Now, if you have success stories, we would love to hear them. I get them all week long. It's just something that just really drives my train. I really, really appreciate that. That is what we're doing this for, is for you to learn to build reserves, get out of debt, build some great investment properties, and to get a cash flow that's going to last you the rest of your life. So let me get off my soapbox here, and let me start our webinar. Next week, we're going to talk about family is forever. Your cash is not. We want to talk about how to preserve this capital. Once you put together these wonderful investment properties, how we can keep them for generations and let your future family enjoy the fruits of your labor, and teach them to go ahead and not only keep the portfolio together, but even make it even better. We're going to talk about that next week. But today, as promised, we're going to talk about property managers. Some of the topics today, of course, you've got this on your screens. Why would you use a property manager? Why on earth it's going to cost you, $1,000 to $1,500 a year to have a property manager. Why would you spend that money? What should you look for in a property manager when you're looking for it? What qualifications should a property manager possess? And of course, what concerns should a residential investor take into consideration? Because you're kind of putting some of the control of your property into someone else's hands. We as investors sometimes have trouble doing that. And it does take a little bit of getting used to. But a good property manager just does marvelous things. So let's get right into how do you select one? Well, first off, one of the things that are most important today is compliance. You're going to find that about 80% of all fair housing complaints come from tenants because they feel like they've been mistreated, particularly in markets today where you're getting multiple applications. And you really need to know how to handle the tenants because they feel like they've been mistreated. And, in our business, there is no room for discrimination. There is no room for anything other than good business. Not only is discrimination unlawful and unethical, it's terrible business. What do we care? We just want to make sure that we get someone that fits into our properties. And by knowing what the rules are, we can make sure that we don't step on anyone's toes. We can make sure that we have a sound policies. And your property manager is going to know how to do that. They are going to keep you in compliance. And of course, we're in a people business. We want to maintain very, very good relationships with our tenants. And that's not only once they get the application and they move into the property, they do a walkthrough. But we also want to maintain good relations. Clean, safe, and friendly is our theme. We want our tenants to stay in the property for years and years and years. It's not unusual for us to have tenants for 5 or 10 years. And just think a tenant that's been in your property for 10 years pays a third of your years. A 30-year mortgage, and they paid 10 years for you. How wonderful is that? They're going to, a good property manager is going to know all the rules, all the regulations, and they're going to have great people skills. Now, most of the time, our tenants just stay in place for years and years and years. Sometimes what happens, a 5 or 6 or 7 year tenant is no longer the same tenant when they first moved in. They've changed a little bit. If we have problems with them, your property manager is going to have relationships. He's going to know the process for eviction. He's going to know the process on how to keep a good tenant compliant themselves, because we do want them to pay. And we want to make sure that we're keeping the management and maintenance down and our costs down. But a good property manager is going to have relationships with an attorney. He's going to know the process. So if for some reason that they don't pay their rent, he's going to know the process with which to start the eviction and having them move out. Now, here in Arizona, it is very cut and dry. We can have a tenant out in less than 30 days. And in ours, now again, this is just a suggestion. My portfolio, it's due the first, it becomes late the second, and we will process serve on the second so that we're into the court system. They'll be out by the 23rd, 24th, 25th of the month. We'll get a chance to go in and clean up the property, and the property is available for the next rental cycle. And of course, if you have a property manager, they have a system with which to do that. They have all the forms, and they're ready to go. They also have all the trade providers. Now, in a long-term tenant, if you have a property, a tenant that's been there for 10 years, they're going to have, things are going to break. Dishwashers wear out, the garbage disposals wear out. Sometimes your air conditioner doesn't work properly, and you're going to get calls. Now, a property manager is going to take those calls for you. And you know that always in July on a Friday night is when your air conditioner goes out here in Maricopa County, and you don't get that call, your property manager does. And he has staff and vendors that can go out on an emergency basis and get the properties up and running so that these people have air conditioning, because they are your tenants We want to accommodate them at every chance we possibly can. And they're going to have tradespeople that they've done business with for a very, very long time. They know they're reliable and they're priced fairly. And they can get a very, very good response time. And after you've done business with a vendor for a lot of years, they value your business. They want to make sure that they take care of our customers and our clients. And we have more clout. So your property manager has much more clout than possibly you do. Now, your property manager takes all those phone calls. You can just go on. Your life becomes your own. They're going to utilize trust accounts for you, give you accounting. How important is accounting when you go to do your taxes? You take this to your tax accountant. They want to have all the expenses, all the income coming in. And it's just so much easier. They can give you a complete accounting what's going on. You could also talk to your property manager and say, look, you have free reign up to $500. You don't need to call me because, I like to dive. I've dove all along the Great Barrier Reef, and my property manager took care of absolutely everything. They just put the money in my account. Any problems they took care of. They didn't need to call me because they took care of most everything. It eliminates all the little nuisance calls. And for me, it was a tax deduction, but it gave me freedom. And just when I'm going to tell you, when it came to tax time, all your expenses were there and itemized for you. It was just such a breeze to do that. And for that, it's going to cost you, maybe it's going to cost you $1,000 to $1,500. But how do you find a very, very good property manager for yourself? Referral, probably. Some of the best. And of course, when we have online services, you can certainly go to Yelp, you can go to Google, you can go to Trulia and see what kind of reviews they've had. It's oftentimes when they have experience. If they're brand new in the business, you really need to think that through, because experience in property management is absolutely positively a must, because we're handling people. And all of us are kind of the same. So after you've been in experience for a while, you start running into the same type of problems, the same type of issues, and you're used to handling them. So you also want to know, how many properties does this property manager handle? Now, you can handle 1,000 properties if you have a big staff. If you have it subsidized where maybe each property manager is handling 100 properties. If you have someone that's got 1,000 properties and there's only 2 people, there is no way possible they can give you any kind of service, and they cannot take care of your property. You just kind of get lost. Now, as long as your tenants are in place and you don't have any issues, then they're just absolutely fine. Property managers tell me that a few tenants take up 90% of their time. So maybe 3 or 4% of their portfolio, the tenants will take up 90% of a manager's time. Manager has a really hard time with that, particularly if you're with a discount management company, and there are those around, because they just cannot afford to use that kind of time. So if you've made a mistake when you put people into them, that's why we do a 1-year lease, because if these people are really a high maintenance, a high issue tenant, then we may not want to renew the lease to them and give them plenty of time with which to go find another one. That's why we do this on a 12-month basis, so we can weed out those people, because we want tenants that are going to last 5 and 10 years, and that is really more the norm than not. But getting back to how to find a good tenant, a good management company for you, you want to make sure, how many do they currently manage? How long have they been doing this for you? How many employees do they have? What are their roles? Do they have their own repair group? Now remember, whenever we turn over a property, it needs to be painted, clean. We do all the preventative maintenance. We change out the batteries in the smoke detectors. We make sure that if there's any corrosion at any of our plumbing, we get that taken care of beforehand. And you want to have maybe a crew that goes in. You get a handyman can go in, and if he works for the company, he can go in and 4, 5, or 6 hours can have a lot of the things done. and you don't have to be calling in lots of trades. So it depends on what kind of services they are. And honestly, go look at LinkedIn, go look at Facebook, go look at Yelp. You just read the post and professionally ask around. We certainly will answer any questions. If you ask us for some referrals, we're more than happy to do that. We have a very good pulse as to who does a very, very good business. And we teach this, of course. This is one of the specialized courses that we have talk about, because managing a property is really a very, very important part of our business. Not only selecting a very, very good property, but we want to make sure that we maintain our tenant clean, safe, and friendly. The longer they stay in that property, the better off we are. We want to keep that vacancy factor down to a bare minimum. And of course, you want to have your management company on the same page. So if they have their own cleaners and painters and carpet cleaners, and they know that when the first of the month comes around, someone's moving out and someone's moving in, we need to be very, very proactive and get this done within a day or 2 or 3 days. Get it done as quickly as you possibly can, because we do not want that vacancy factor to expand. We want them to get them in. And if everybody understands the process, it just goes so much smoother. So what qualifications? Well, in the state of Arizona, and probably around most places around the country, you don't really need to have anything more than a real estate license. However, there's all kinds of training. There's risk management certifications, and this is very important because we want to make sure that we're in compliance. We want to make sure that we're doing everything right. We want to make sure that our tenants are happy. We want to make sure we have written policies. We want a written policy as to applications. How are we going to handle an application? We want to make sure that we have our ratios, the rent to income ratios, debt to income ratios. We want to talk about what about late payments from someone else. So, if they've been late on someone else and it shows up on the credit report, is 1 late okay over a 12-month period? Is 3 not enough? So we want to make sure that the property manager has all of those taken care of. They have a process. Also, when tenants are going in and tenants are going out, we want to make sure that the property management company has a process for moving tenants in and walking tenants out, because we want to do a digital load on that property to make sure that we can verify and review how we delivered the property. So if prior to a tenant moving in, that property should be in very, very good shape, and your property manager should be able to take a digital upload on it. They should take all kinds of photos. They can do videos, put that into a server somewhere, and then they compare that to when a tenant is moving out, and we can see what kind of damage was done and who did it and when it was done. So this is just part of the experiential portion of a good property manager. They're going to get that by going to classes for risk reduction, designations, doing some memberships. And of course, the more experience that they have, the more beneficial that is for us. They're representing you. Now, most of your property managers, there is only one side of the story. That is your side. Not 2 sides of the story, only one. If they're not on your side, we're not going to use them as a property manager. We want them to represent us. We want them to make sure that they're taking care of our money, that they're being very, very frugal with their money. They're not overspending, making sure that when they do have to have a repair, that repair is paid for and paid fairly. And we want to make sure that they are working on our side. They are part of our team. And they have to understand that, yes, we want you to make money. Listen, I want a property manager to do well. I want them to make money. I want them to prosper. But I also want them to understand that my returns are most important to me. And so they are really working on our side. And if I get the feeling that they're not working on our side, I will leave them. Because we need to make sure that they are working strictly for us. So what kind of considerations? Well, You know, if you're having a problem in our marketplace, it is almost impossible to hide that. If you've got a problem with any kind of management, if they've had some issues, they are online. I would certainly go ahead and take a look at them. You can't hide this stuff. You're welcome to talk to us, and we'll do everything we possibly can. You can go to the real estate department and see if they've got complaints on them. Certainly, if there's any kind of issues with tenants or landlords, it's going to be online. You're going to see this on all of the major publications. And you need to ask, are they fairly new? How long have they been doing this? I like a property that's been, a manager that's been in business at least 5 years, so that they've got a pretty good background to them. And I'd like them to have at least 100 or 200 properties going in. And this is going to give them enough stability so they've got income coming in that they're going to do well, and we want them to prosper. Now, I don't mind a discounter. I think that that's just wonderful. We want to make sure that they understand if there's, what the fees are, because if we have a discount and we have a tenant that's in place, been in place for a number of years, they're not a problem. A discounter is just absolutely fine. You just have to understand that if you have a tenant that then something starts taking all your property manager's time, they're going to want to be compensated for that time. And you need to ask the property manager, what happens if we start having some management issues? Is there additional fees? And you can understand that they would want some extra fees, but you need to know what those are going into it. Here's the other thing too, you want to make sure that there's liability and business insurance on your property manager, because the property management gives you an extra layer of liability protection. So you have the tenant, then the property manager, and then yourself, and it just gives you another layer of insulation as an investor. Now, I've never had any problems with it. We treat our tenants just as well as we possibly can. We want to make sure that they're happy and that they stay in place. So you could also maybe get some referrals. It's always good to talk to other property property investors with the management company, and a good management company will give you all kinds of people that they're doing business with in the past or doing current business with them, and they can ask. So let me wrap this up. I'm a big proponent of property managers. If you come and sit down with us and do our calculations, you're going to know that I put a property manager right into our equation. That's just part of doing business. It's just a business expense, like a vacancy factor. A good property manager is just built into it. Now, if you want to do it yourself, I understand that, but a property manager is going to give you freedom. You're going to be able to go do whatever you want. A good property manager is going to watch your back. They're going to take care of your interest. They're going to watch your cash flow for you. They're going to enhance your investment properties, and they're going to manage your portfolio like it's theirs. This is worth money. It's just great business. And then if you've got someone taking care of your investment portfolio, you can go do what you're good at. You can go out and do your business because they're good at what they do. We're going to pay them for their expertise, and we're going to go make more money doing what we're good at. And then when you want to go play, you don't have to worry about getting calls in the night that maybe something is broken and I'm in Hawaii diving, or I'm in Hawaii fishing, or on the beach, because my property manager is there to take care of any problems that I happen to have. I am a great proponent of it. You're welcome to call us on this. You're welcome to talk with us. You can reach me at michael@michaeldeville.com, creating wealth at westusa.com. I'm in the corporate office a lot, 602-942-4200. More than happy to review these with you. We want you to succeed. I want you to do very well. And also, while I'm on this subject, if you like the video, we'd love you to put a like on it and maybe share it with others so it would help us with our marketing. And I'd love to hear your success stories. Just love to hear your success stories. I hear them during the week. I've asked for them. I'm getting them in. If you have success stories, I would love to hear it. It just really, that really makes my train drive. So I really enjoy that. So listen, thank you very much for listening to me. Next week, we're going to talk about family is forever. Believe me, The closest thing you'll ever have is family. There is no replacing it. When we become investors, your cash is going to get depleted, but we want to go ahead and do a generational wealth, maybe some family office, so we can keep this portfolio intact for generations. And this would be a great thing. So listen, if you have comments or questions, creatingwealth@westusa.com. We are going to be teaching some classes. We're going to have a class really on management. It's a very, very important. We want to make sure everyone understands how important this is, because managing your tenants is as important as selecting the right property. We're here to help you any way we possibly can. My very, very best to you. If you like this, like our video and share it for me. My very best to you. Bye-bye now.